Dan Grosvenor. Grosvenor. How do you actually say your name?
You said it right. You don't say the S.
Okay. The silent S.
Silent S.
I remember that from grammar school.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about your business, your product mix, what you're doing, and where you're located.
Yeah, so I'm in St. Louis, Missouri. We have we have 3 locations now. We opened up 2 in the last 14 months, 2 additional locations. And we have started out at very low level, buy here, pay here. That was back when you could buy a car for $500, get $500 down, $29.95, no interest. You're doing the 1st and the 15th of each month, and you had to collect twice a month for that reason. Over the years, I discovered that what a miserable life, because we weren't really helping people. We'd sell 15 cars over the weekend and have about 8 ticked off people at our doorstep on Monday. So we started working with some of the indirect lenders, credit acceptance, and that kind of thing, and kind of morphed into more of a retail. And over the years, we've kind of shifted kind of as the market dictated between a mix of buy here, pay here, and retail.
And what would you say that mix is as of today?
So last year, we were at about 14% in-house and the rest indirect retail. By indirect lending, retail, subprime. We're focused really on subprime, always have been. This year to date, we're at 47% in-house. Last month was 55% in-house.
That's a huge change.
Big and fast. It's changed.
Last year, I remember watching you at NIADA. You had this nice little podcast interview with the Independent Dealer Podcast live. And your retail gross margin was like off the charts.
Yeah.
So what was happening then compared to what's happening now?
Well, and you talked a little bit about it, the liquidity and just low interest rates, and there was a lot of finance companies. Well, in easy to play Monday morning quarterback, were maybe not making the best decisions, but they were willing to give our folks a bunch of money. So our average gross on our indirect retail deals was about $6,000 a copy. That was average. And I did a little research just kind of looking at some of these numbers, and we had 74 deals last year that there was over a $9,000 gross, and we had some of them that were $16,000. This year, we've only had 16 deals that are over $9,000. Still not bad. Average gross this year is down about $1,000, so we're about $5,000 average gross on the retail deals that we are doing.
And were you targeting different inventory?
So the inventory, when we were just doing kind of the lower level buy here, pay here, 10-15% of our business, it was kind of a side gig. Something I'd always done. You have some trade-ins and some stuff like that. We didn't really focus on buying the buy here, pay here car because retail was feeding us quite well. And but what we found over the last few years is we were kind of putting our worst customer in our worst car, which is part of the reason why we switched to the leasing model.
Oh, that's such a nice transition. I wasn't even going to get to it yet. Wow.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Actually, I will pause there because I am really intrigued with, so you're buying specific inventory for retail,
yeah,
and then you were taking some of these older units and putting your worst customer in those units, but something happened along the way. What happened to all the inventory that you were acquiring for the retail side? Did you end up inventory heavy and over your skis a little bit? What happened?
No, because over the last few years, inventory has been, it's hard to buy too much inventory up until the last few months. Now recon is our real problem. No, it's actually, if you're really dialed in on what the particular finance companies that you do business with, and if you're just laser focused, we don't sell cars. I mean, we provide solutions for folks, even with the retail piece. So I don't care what vAuto says, days and market and all the other stuff. It doesn't matter to me. It's what will provide good transportation, what will fit the needs, not necessarily the wants, and we just keep replicating that.
Okay. And then, so you're slowly making this shift to in-house financing. What changed within your marketing to be able to do that? Was there anything? Were you targeting 2 different customers at the same time?
Well, and that's the thing about always being focused on subprime. Our marketing has always been pretty much a subprime message. We've never really priced our cars on our website and online because again, we don't really, selling cars really isn't our business. So no, the marketing really hasn't changed. We've done a little bit of direct in-house Facebook marketing just to kind of talk about the lease piece, but very, very little. It's pretty much, we're heavy on the radio. And it's always been just a subprime message.
This is a personal question. Mm-hmm. How do you convey the mascot of your organization over the radio?
A lot of money, for one, because we're heavy. We spend a lot of money on the radio, and just I am the spokesperson of the radio commercials. It's goofy. I tell people that my mom tells folks that I'm a drug dealer because she's ashamed to say what I really do for a living. But yeah, I'm the loud, goofy guy on the radio.
And what is the costume that you typically wear just for the seats in the back?
It's a pickle costume. So it's I did not bring it with me. I can show you some pictures, but no. Yeah.
No, I love that. On our Christmas tree, we have an ornament that's a pickle, and every time I hang it up, I'm like, Dan Grosvenor.
And we have a bunch of those ornaments throughout our showroom hanging from the ceiling.
Love it. Yeah. Okay, so you sort of gave a lead in previously. You made a conversion. You were doing in-house financing on the buy here, pay here side. What, besides Nick Markosian always talking in your ear about leasing, led you to make the change?
Well, Nick was a big part of it, but really the biggest reason, there's a few, but the biggest reason was, you mentioned inventory a moment ago, and the ACVs of these cars have just gotten crazy, right? You even showed it in your graphs earlier. And so we had a decision to make. Everyone who does buy here, pay here, do you get more money down? Well, heck, you would do that every time if you could. Do you go more term? Well, everybody in this room knows that that's not how that ends well for the customer or the dealer. And so, how do I work with the market conditions with these higher ACVs and still keep a customer at an affordable payment? And that's where the big driver. Another big thing is we're a right to cure state in the state of Missouri, and so it's real hard to train your customer. To make sure they make their payments on time if your only recourse is to call them. So those were the two big drivers.
Okay. So then you made the decision internally or from a leadership level down.
Income tax is another big reason as well. We were paying with retail, with the grosses we were doing. Uncle Sam, you can only put so much in reinsurance and that kind of thing. We were paying a ton of money in income taxes.
So then, how did it go with your staff, with your team members, when you said, hey, we're going to make the switch from retail to leasing?
And I wasn't sure how it was going to go. This is going to be a business we're focused on. And in fact, I mentioned I opened up 2 stores. I opened up our second store because we were still doing really well on the retail side. But I knew this was coming. I knew the banks were going to start pulling back. Everyone who's been in this business for any period of time could just see it coming. So I opened up this second store to focus on that part of the business. What we didn't know is this was going to pull back much faster than we originally anticipated. They love it for the reasons that I just said. I'm able to put a better car on the street, right? So there's a lot less heat. There's a lot less. They're more proud to sell the car that we're selling now versus jamming somebody in a car. It's something everybody wins.
Okay. And then what about the training for the team? Was there anything that you did differently? We just had this nice talk about compliance and advertising on your website and the language that you use in your dealership.
So I took a lot of notes, and I work with Steve, but I took a lot of notes just on going back and our website does talk specifically that it is a lease. And when I first started getting into it, Nick was obviously one that pushed, but I also have some other friends that are very big in this business, and one of them had said that the biggest hurdle you're going to have is driving home the fact that they don't own this car, that it's a lease, right? And so we kind of try to get ahead of that as much as possible, and it's still a problem. But we've only been doing this for almost a year is when we switched to leasing. We've gotten much better at that. But have we done as well in training as what Steve would suggest? No. But again, took a lot of notes, and that's especially with the collections piece, because we've had a related finance company for so long. And man, that's difficult for me not to say loan or that kind of thing.
Yeah, of course, totally
Right.
understand. So then what happens from the customer standpoint? You're trying to do this shift in your business, and it sounds like there was some resistance from some customers. What was that process like, and how did you overcome it?
You know, it's just a matter of just telling them this is you're getting this program allows you. Well, one big one is the fact that in the state of Missouri, we're one of the few states where the customer is responsible for the sales tax, right? So that's where my big resistance was for you. You and I have talked about that for years. You know, for a lot of you, it's a cash flow benefit. Well, for us, it's actually a drawback. And so, but you turn that into a marketing opportunity of, well, Mr. Customer, you don't have to come up with this sales tax in 30 days. And the state of Missouri just passed a law that by 2026, we're going to start collecting sales tax at the dealership. Anyway, so I'm kind of ahead of the curve anyway.
Okay. And how many customers do you think you lost in the conversion when they came and you said, no, this is actually a lease, we're just going to lease it to you?
They don't care. They all they want is they want a car, and then they want a payment, a car that fits their needs and a payment that fits their budget. That's it. They don't care.
Okay. So now we've talked about these other parts of advertising, marketing, the customer. What about internally? What changed for your internal operations? I'm hesitant to say this, but I know that you changed DMS systems. So what was that like?
Well, that was one of the things that we didn't necessarily anticipate. And if you're going to fire your controller, don't do it at the time during a DMS conversion. So we changed DMSs, we changed controllers, we changed and with the change in leadership in that department, we changed pretty much almost all of our admin staff. So we not only am I changing part of our business model, but the backbone of the back end. There's not a lot of options with leasing with regards to DMS, and we definitely took a step back with regards to just the accounting piece, because I had a franchise level DMS. There's a lot of things it does better, but bottom line though, everybody hates their DMS.
Touche. Okay,
and hate's a strong word. Not every DMS does everything.
Love-hate relationship.
Not all DMSs do everything perfect.
Yeah. So what about the accounting side? You just touched on accounting, and there's different accounting when you're going from leasing, from buy here, pay here to leasing.
Yeah.
What was that like?
Well, and that was the reason we tried in the beginning to run it like an RFC, right? To have, okay, we're just going to keep the leases over here. We like our DMS. It's all dialed in. Just doesn't work. It's just too intermingled, which I'm not telling you anything you don't know. But so that's when we had in February had to switch all in for the full DMS. We are still wrestling with the accounting piece of it. It is it's difficult.
And who do you have who has ownership of that accounting part in your organization?
So we have my new controller, but he came from enterprise, so he has some concept of leasing, but not to the degree of what we do. So that is his task to try to figure out. We also work with Chad Martin as well, who's helped us out as well with that.
Nice. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. I'm just kidding. Chad Martin.
So turn the mic off for a second. I got a few things to tell you.
There's a sponsor withdraw for next year.
You led me into that for the sponsor, and that was your 10 minutes, Chad.
Yeah. Okay, so what other hurdles did you run into in this conversion change?
The biggest ones were definitely the DMS. The other thing was, and I mentioned, and it's maybe somewhat unique to Missouri, but was the tax laws. So in Missouri, you have the option. You can either pay your sales tax one time on the ACV of the vehicle, or you can pay it over time like most of you do within the payments. Well, we kind of did some pencil it out, and the better option was for us to take the negative cash flow up front and pay it up front. That's not the way anybody else that we can tell in the state of Missouri utilizes that part of the law. So you talk to different people within the same department, and you get two different answers on the same day. So we're unfortunately trailblazers when it comes to this piece of it. So DMS and then the tax piece, also a personal property tax. So it's written that, you know, the customer is responsible to pay us back.
What happens? What happens when they don't?
It gets added to the cost of it, just like anything else, any other type of side extra that goes on the contract. We don't know yet because we haven't experienced it yet. We're talking about it now and how do we get ahead of it. We'll talk again next year and I'll let you know how it worked out. But we're not looking forward to it. But those were the big challenges of switching. But you know, again, we came from a buy here, pay here background. So it's we you know the basic customer and everything like that. It's no different.
Okay. So I like that there's total independence between you and I, financially.
Yeah.
And you were working with a bank who was supporting your in-house financing. What was that transition like?
Well, and so we have not borrowed a dime on the portfolio yet. So it's and I've worked with this local bank for a long time. They've got our floor plan, finance our buildings, that kind of thing. We just secured a line of credit with them. You know, and you always worry what's going on. You see all the lending landscape. You talked about it a little bit in your presentation in the beginning of, you know, is your lender going to be with you tomorrow? Now, they appear to be rock solid, but they have the same issues that a lot of other banks, credit unions, all that. Their deposits are low. What's going to happen, you know, with any of the capital providers? We've seen them. I think Texas Capital quit doing it, and a lot of these guys are just pulling out of this business. And we're seeing it a big on the indirect lending side too, which was part of our shift, our percentages of the in-house. And if it's all right, if we go down that road, we have lost 3 lenders in the last about 6 months. Not anything we did, they just pulled out of this space, quit originating loans altogether. Good, solid lenders that were, you know, we did a lot of business with. Capital One, I'm in another group that really studies the market share of the different subprime lenders and things like that. And I wish I had more information. Next Tuesday is that meeting to know what last quarter was. But between first quarter and second quarter, Capital One went from number 1 in subprime, being 620 and below. Number 1 in subprime, dropped 11% of the overall market, which is a big number, down to number 3, which basically they've pulled back significantly. BMO Harris quit doing auto loans. Wells Fargo has all but pulled out. I mean, they still say they do it, but they're 100% of trade out the door kind of, we're doing business, but we're not doing business kind of stuff. So we have a lot of, if all I did was retail, and I have a lot of friends that's what they do. If all I did was subprime retail, I'd be scared to death right now. In fact, there are a lot of stores that are shutting down in my market. We've watched, you know, a lot of you talked about some of the buy here, pay here ones, but like Off Lease and was it Switch? I mean, there's a lot of these are just vacating, and I'm seeing it in my market as well. Well, we just added 2 stores, so I'm excited, quite frankly. And so I didn't realize, you know, I just joined a buy here, pay here group about 6 or so months ago, and you know, so you're nervous about what's going on, and oh my gosh, my delinquencies are up, charge-offs are up. Folks, I'm telling you, this is going to be, because sitting on both sides of the fence, I don't know at what point in time that the delinquencies and charge-offs are going to taper off, but we've got the people that Wells Fargo don't want anymore are our people now. We're not getting the bottom of the barrel. I'm excited about it, about what's to come.
So you're seeing a higher tier quality customer candidate.
We are not exponentially higher, but we're seeing it come a little better. I think we're going to be, and who knows, no crystal ball, who knows how long this is going to be. So there's going to be some turmoil, but as we have these subprime lenders pulling out of the market, that's our customer. We saw it in 08, right? I didn't capitalize on it as much back then, but I'm going to today.
Wouldn't it be so great to get that rate decrease like it happened in 08? If only.
If only.
If only. Okay, so we have a few more minutes. I wanted to open it up to see if there's any dying questions that are out there for Dan while he's up here on stage in the light. Got.
You mentioned that you switched DMS. What do you use it now and why?
You knew that was going to come up. We use Deal Pack. I did a lot of research on because there's only a few that do leasing. Did a lot of research, and again, I'm just one guy, just my experience. I'm not saying one's better than the other, but I at this moment, I felt that they were definitely the best option. Also have, my buddies who are in this space also use them as well, so I'm able to leverage some of their staff and some of the things they've bumped up against. So that's who I use is Deal Pack.
Yeah, and we see Deal Pack, AMS, DCL as sort of the top ones, and then there's a couple smaller ones that work depending on the size of your portfolio.
Bit of a void in this space. It's has been really niche, but it's really starting to. So some, either the ones we have, I would assume, are going to be a little more competitive, or somebody's going to come in.
Yeah. What else? Crystal.
It's 3 stores. And so, and I have lots of friends that have multiple locations, and I've had 2 stores before too. The second store is a real pain. I mean, you're really there's a lot of different, systems and processes and things like that. Number 3, we didn't even notice. Like, it was just kind of, the thing we didn't notice was the inventory problem that we have, is keeping them all supplied. But my second store was small, didn't cost me a lot of money, didn't take a whole lot, but just there was a lot of logistical things, even with software, with our CRM. How do we separate this store from that store and keep it all together? And again, I've been told this myself, and then I've experienced it myself. Store 2 is the hardest, but store 3 is. Now I'm told that store 5 is a little tougher. It adds that extra, you get that other next ceiling, but. And I guess stay tuned for in a couple of years maybe, and we'll talk about that.
It sure sounds like he's talking about adding kids. Like, 3rd kid, didn't even notice. And number 5, though, we better be prepared. What else? Luke.
I know zero about leasing. So, quick question. It doesn't sound like it's working. Okay. So, you said that you were paying your sales tax up front.
Yeah.
And that's on the ACV of the car, correct?
That is correct.
The other option would be to pay it as it is collected.
Forever, yes.
Okay. If you repossess this car, do you get a credit back for the ACV for the sales tax that you paid?
Credit, no, because it's my asset. I paid sales tax on it one time.
Okay.
I then just release it. It stays within the leasing arm of the dealership.
So you won't have to pay it again?
That is correct.
Okay.
Well, that's one of the things we're fighting right now, is we're starting to recycle them because they don't understand that the license bureau.
So
that's the way it works.
So I'm sure Chad is a lot smarter than I when it comes to accounting. I don't understand how the time value of money would allow you to come out better by paying it up front. Can you explain why you decided that?
Working it out through some models and just saying if this then that, and is it a slam dunk? That's what's going to happen. It's a projection. But my average sales tax right now, because I'm paying on 100% on what I bid on I'm not even taking the auction fees out of it. What we bid on this car is what I pay sales tax on. So my average sales tax is around $850 one time up front. And the model is to recycle these vehicles. So hopefully we'll lease these things 2-3 times. So over time it should. We're still working on getting some tax credits on the ones that are wrecked. Again, state of Missouri, I'm fighting with on how that works.
But let's say that your cost of capital is, let's say 12%.
Yeah.
You got to figure that in as well.
Well, and so I haven't borrowed any money yet.
Not yet.
I have, and then it's coming like next. My controller comes to me every day because he doesn't understand this business quite as well. Every Monday or every Thursday he comes to me, oh, damn, we're going to need some money, and then by Monday I don't hear anything from him. So because we get the payments on Friday, and that's what happens. We're going to have to here soon. But you're right. That is something to. But again, if the goal is to have this asset for 3, 4, maybe 5 years, that $800 one time, if you can do it, should pencil out.
And I think the other aspect is that when you're paying tax on the payment from the lessee's payment from the customer or the customer's payment, it's rent plus depreciation. So you're including the receivable payment. It's a higher sum if you map it out on paying pay as you go versus paying on the ACV up front. But from a cash flow standpoint,
it stinks. I mean, it's definitely drags.
But sales tax is a state by state issue. It's
for sure.
completely different by the state. So this conversation for Missouri is completely different from the guy from Florida or California.
Positively.
So it's, I'm in New Jersey. Mine's completely different than New York, and I get credits back when the cars come back, etc. So sales tax is something you just got to take by a dealer by dealer basis, and figure out what the best option based on your state law.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have a question you wanted to add?
Nope.
That was perfect. That was perfect commentary, though. We'll do 2 more minutes. What else? Did you raise your hand, Brett?
Yeah, I got a quick one. Just in case everybody doesn't share your optimism about, as the market gets worse, how we actually get a better customer. And for anybody in the room who lived through 2010 to 2013, would you expand a little bit on the opportunity that we have as lease here, pay here dealers as the subprime markets pull out, and how that is an opportunity not to be missed?
Well, and so I'm a little more optimistic because, as we said in the beginning, my portfolio is very, very young. I don't have thousands and thousands of accounts that I have to try to collect on in this downtime. So I'm a little more of a cheerleader than maybe some in this room because they're getting their butts kicked, on what they already have. But to talk about what's the opportunities, it's the customer who Capital One would have financed yesterday. And quite frankly, almost literally yesterday. I mean, it is like October is when we really saw this draw back pretty rapidly. Still a good income, good risk person, just has some bumps and bruises. It's just going to open up. And it was brought up yesterday. I think we were talking about it, where student loans. People are going to start defaulting on student loans, and that's going to affect their credit score. Something I hadn't considered until last night. So I was thinking as a negative, these people are going to start paying their student loans. Well, no, they're probably not. They're going to pay their car payment. Credit score is going to go down. The Capital Ones of the world's not going to want them. Guess what? I do. Absolutely.
Didn't even know it. First off, I'm a franchise dealer that started a lease here, pay here operation. And you don't do any retail versus lease here, pay here? You did 100% conversion?
No. It's gone from about 15% of my business being in-house to this year's been 47%.
Well, my point is, do you still offer high interest rate, long-term conventional loans to subprime if they say yes?
Positively.
Do you ever do a comparison between that high interest rate, long-term loan for the consumer or a lease versus the short-term lease to see if you can trade them out sooner and if that's an option that's better suited for both you and the customer?
No, I haven't. I hadn't considered that, no.
Okay. So on that question, how do you select which is appropriate? Do you still try to qualify the customer first on the retail side?
Yeah, so one real important thing that I it's probably worth mentioning is, how do you not put your worst customer in your worst car, and how do you keep them from kind of giving away your low ACV inventory, which is very, very difficult to come by in the first place. So I have a kind of a line in the sand that if it's an under $13,000 ACV, if they're not making a $4,000 or better gross on it, they can't sell it, because that's my lease vehicle, right? And that was happening. They were kind of giving away, and you talk about kind of how do we benefit the consumer, and one of our core values in our company is we leave people better than we found them. And so I think that's a big reason why I don't intend, if the market allows me, to continue to offer retail. Is, in a perfect world from a financial standpoint, if they could pay me $250 every 2 weeks forever, okay, well, that's great. But is that really what's best for society? And so when I can take that person that, we just had one a couple weeks ago, they bought their 6th car. They came in bankruptcy. We put them in a very low end buy here, pay here vehicle. this last car, I mean, it was the best credit union financing that they could, so I can graduate and still retain that customer. And I'm sure with the franchise stores, that's very much a big thing that you get to do. I'm building up. In fact, that's on my business card. We build clients for life, right? And so I'm growing my future retail customers. And again, if they want to, if their lives, if I'm the only one that they pay, God bless America, I'll continue to put them in cars. But if they better themselves, I still have a way to retain that customer.
The exact same conversation you said, that $4,000 deal on the cheap car, is the exact conversation I had with my team, because those cars are gold.
Yep.
In the lease here, pay here space. So it's funny that you said that. That's the exact gross I told them. If you're not making X, pass.
Yep. And they're on board with it because they see the value of what we're doing. Because they also see the value in what I just said. They know that I get to sell this person through a credit union in a couple of years, maybe, if they do the right thing.
Love it. Okay, so we're going to break right